What's up guys, COOLADUDA here, back again with another video. 2 in a row, that's a record in like 2 years now. That's really sad. Well, today we're doing a commander deck on Chulane, Teller of Tales. Chulane is 2 green, white, blue for a 2/4 human druid with vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may draw a card, and then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Yeah, this is a powerhouse. You can also pay 3 and tap her to return a creature to your hand, so you can keep doing it again. Yeah, so she ramps and draws cards in the command zone, which is one of the most powerful things you can do. Yeah, so this deck is mostly creatures, so we can abuse her ability, but we do have to run non-creatures. It's like just a thing of life. So I'm gonna go over all the non-creatures. Soul Ring, really boring. Arcane Signet, really boring. Swiftfoot Boots will give hexproof to Chulane, so that way you can keep her around longer. Lifecrafter's Bestiary, you can pay a green every time you cast a creature spell to draw a card, which can since you get more cards, it's easier to hit lands to put into play with Chulane. Angelic Purge gets rid of artifact, creature, or enchantment. Excuse me, that is amazing. Growing Rites of Itlamok turns into a Gaia's Cradle if you have 4 more creatures, so it adds a green mana for each creature you control. That is powerful. Gaia's Cradle is an expensive card, and this is just a really budget Gaia's Cradle. Leyline of Anticipation allows you to take your turn on everyone else's turn. Abundance can make sure you hit exactly the kind of card you want off of Chulane's trigger. If you need to hit a land, you can choose land and you flip until you get a land. Bond of Discipline can just win games by tapping all creatures your opponents control, and then they all gain. And then all yours gain lifelink. Combine that with some other big monsters we'll see later, and you can just win the game. Play of the Game will get rid of all non-land permanents if the board ever gets clogged up. Now people are going to target you really early with this deck because they see your commander. So we run Bard, Steward of Argyle, and Archon of Absolution just for protection, so they have to pay every time they want to attack us with a creature. Giant Killer is a cheap 1-mana creature with a kill spell attached to it, and it can also tap threatening creatures that people want to hit you with. The Biomancer can become a 2/2 eventually, that draws and discards a card, but it's also just a 1-mana creature that we can do a little bit with. Scavenging Ooze exiles cards from graveyards, hosing graveyard decks, and becomes bigger in its own right. Bounty Agent is a cheap 2-mana creature as well, and can destroy a legendary artifact, creature, or enchantment. That's really good. Hushbringer stops alt ETBs, so Yarick decks be warned. Shauna is the size of all the creatures. Her power and toughness equal the number of creatures we control. I cannot talk. Nissa, when she enters the battlefield, she can go get a forest to put into our hands, so that way the next time we cast a creature, we can put that forest into play. Daxos, OG Daxos, exiles cards from the top of our opponent's library, hoses like Yannette and Amanatu decks, or even Atali decks. Eternal Witness will get something back from our graveyard. Reclamation Sage is basically naturalize on a stick. That's the easiest way to word it. Champion of Lambolt gets bigger as we play more creatures, and with creatures with less power than it, can't block ours. So if it's like a 5/5, all 4 4s can't block it. Anything 4 or less. Frilled Mystic counters spells. That's really good. Drastani will gain us life. Sower of Temptation will gain control of any creature on the battlefield that we want. Loyal Guardian will pump all of our creatures if we have Chulane out. Wormcoil Engine is just a big beater, and when it dies, you get 2 3/3s, and it can gain life. It's a good blocker. Steelbane Hydra, it comes in, it can be as big as you want it to be, and then you naturalize by removing a counter from it and paying 3. Endless One is the best card in this deck. Because it can be really big in the late game if you happen to draw it. Or you can cast it for 0 mana off Chulane's trigger. And then you basically 0 mana get a growth spiral. Elvish Visionary draws a cards when it enters the battlefield, as do these next 2 creatures. Muldrifter does as well, but you can evoke it for 3, so you pay 3, draw a card, you may put a land into play, and then draw 2 cards. Fairy Formation can draw cards and make 1/1s, which we can use as chump blockers. Soul of the Harvest will draw a card every time a creature comes into play. Isperia will draw a card every time we're attacked by a creature. Llanowar Elves and Elvish Mystic are just really good ramp creatures to add green mana. Birds of Paradise will add 1 mana of any color we need. Steve, or Sakura Tribe Elder, can sack itself to go get a basic land for the battlefield tapped. Paradise Druid is a 2/1 that can just add, it's like a 2 mana Birds of Paradise. Incubation Druid can add 1 land of any type of mana a land we control can produce. Unless it has a +1/+1 counter on it, either off its adaptability or off Loyal Guardian. And then it can add 3 mana. This fairy will add a green or a blue for 2 mana. Risen Reef. We only have 2 other elementals in the deck, being Muldrifter and Soul of the Harvest. So you're not really going to abuse its trigger that much, but when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top card of your library, and if it's a land, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This guy adds... Sorry, not this guy. Gyre Engineer adds 2 mana to our mana pool. It's just a 3 mana... Farhaven Elf is a 3 mana Rampant Growth. What else goes to get any forest? So if you don't have... So if you have non-basic forests, you can get them. Llanowar Tribe adds 3 green mana to our mana pool. Beanstalk Giant has a ramp spell on it. I talked about this last video. Has a good ramp spell on it and is a big creature to boot. Erixmathes is a 4 mana 12/12 that adds 2 mana, but it can't be a 12/12 until you cast 5 more creature spells. Solemn Simulacrum. Great ramp card, staple of EDH, goes in pretty much every deck you can fit it in. If we have 10 or more lands, Crash of the Rhino Beetles is a 15/15 with Trample. Realmcloak Giant is a good board wipe attached to a 7/7 with Vigilance. Galta is just a 12/12 with Trample that's cheaper for the amount of power we have among our creatures, which is usually going to make him 2 mana. Endra's Forerunners does a mini Craterhoof effect. Miri makes it hard for our creatures to be blocked by our opponents. Jazal can pump all of our attacking creatures. Bramble Sovereign can make token copies of any non-legendary creature we have, like, how about Rampaging Brontodon, which will get bigger for the amount of lands we have. Sunscorched Regent gets bigger every time our opponents cast a spell and we gain a life. Forgotten Ancient, every time a player casts a spell, it will get a counter, and during our upkeep, we can move it to any creature we want. Ulamog is just a big beater in this deck, and you can mill your opponents out if you must, as an alternate way of winning the game. Yeah, guys, this has been Chulane Teller of Tales EDH deck. This deck is very not competitive. This card is really unnecessary. But it's also really fun. This deck is a blast to pilot. If you have any suggestions of what you would put in this deck, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions of why something is in the deck that you think shouldn't be, let me know as well. I'll try to answer any questions I can. Well, see you guys. This has been COOLADUDA, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.